All right, you may start.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. I'm calling this meeting of the Transportation Advisory Board on Monday, August 10th, 2026 to order. I am Chair Darcy Kitching. Our technical uh, person, technical advisor on the meeting is Veronica Sun. Veronica, would you give the technical rules, please?
Yes, I'm going to begin by sharing my screen. All right. Thank you for joining the Transportation Advisory Board meeting to strike a balance between meaningful, transparent engagement and online security. The following rules will be applied. This meeting has been called to conduct the business of the City of Boulder. Activities that disrupt, delay, or otherwise interfere with the meeting are prohibited. The time for speaking is limited to 3 minutes. No person shall speak except when recognized by the person presiding, and no person shall speak for longer than the time allotted. Each person shall register to speak at the meeting using the person's real name. Any person believed to be using a name other than the one they are commonly known by will not be permitted to speak. Please use the raise hand function to be recognized for public comment. If you're on the phone, you will need to press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Nobody will be permitted except for city officials, employees, and invited speakers and presenters. All others will participate by voice only. The technical host at the meeting shall enforce these rules by muting anyone who violates any rules. The Q&A function is enabled. It will be used for individuals to communicate with the host. It should be used for technical and online platform related questions only. If an attendee attempts to use Q&A for any other reason than seeking assistance from the host, the city reserves the right to disable the individual's access to the chat. Only the host and individuals designated by the host will be permitted to share their screen during the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Okay, our first order of business this evening is to approve the minutes of the July meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes? Are there any amendments to be made? It was a very long meeting and it was a long minutes. Anyone have any changes, corrections, amendments to make?
No.
Okay, great, seeing none. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, is there a second? I guess I can second. Okay, all in favor of approving the July 2026 meeting minutes, raise your hand and say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
We can't hear you,
I can't
Michael.
see. I can't see Michael. Yeah.
I can see him, but I can't hear him.
Can't hear
Okay.
me.
Oh, now
All
I
right,
can.
Michael. All right,
Okay.
raise your hand and say aye if you approve
Aye.
the minutes.
Hi.
Aye. Okay. Any opposed? No. Okay. Seeing none. The minutes of the July meeting are approved. 4-0. Great. Okay, and now we are ready for public comment. We invite any members of the public to participate in commenting on any topics on the topic of transportation, anything about transportation that you'd like to share. Veronica, do we have anyone here to participate this evening?
We have one hand raised so far. Amali, I'm going to ask if you can confirm that you're able to speak.
Hi, I'm sorry, my name is in there incorrectly. It's Amelia Dickerson. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Well, you may begin.
Okay. So my name is Amelia Dickerson. I've lived in Boulder for 22 years now, and just a little bit of background is that I moved here. I grew up in South Denver, and then lived in Colorado Springs for a couple of years, both places that were very hard to get around without a car. I am a non-driver. I am blind. And so I just wanted to kind of and then I moved to Boulder because of the ability to get around both public transit and walking and that sort of thing. Um, so I wanted to just kind of speak specifically to some of the things that Blythe Blair had said, and then but to everyone in general, just kind of share my thoughts. So specifically focused on Blythe, some of the things that you said. I'm kind of trying to understand a little bit some of the what the disagreements are between us. Dig into that a little deeper. I want to be really precise in some of the things that we say because sometimes we can kind of blur over meanings and assume we're meaning the same thing, but we're not. I also think sometimes we can oversimplify situations to be just a couple of lines, and then we leave out some of the context and the meaning and that sort of thing, and the complexity behind the simple lines. So one thing, so you've said that the intersection at 47th and Independence is a controlled intersection, and the explanation was that drivers are required to stop for pedestrians according to the law. So it's kind of an abstract. I mean, a law in general is just kind of an abstract, like you are supposed to do this versus there are very concrete consequences for a pedestrian if a driver fails to stop. And then the consequences for the pedestrian, include like severe bodily harm and or death. And then whereas for the driver, it's more time limited things such as like a fine, losing points on their driver's license, potentially time in jail or community service, but it's things that end. So kind of there are research has shown that there are certain measures that help to calm traffic, such as like rumble strips. Um, uh,
Thank you, Amelia. We appreciate you participating. The 3 minutes for public comment are up, but thank you, and please continue to write and share your experience. Blythe, do you have any response to Amelia's comments?
Oh, I wasn't muted in the first place. Sorry for that. I'll mute after I'm done. Yes, of course. And I did want to say to Amelia, I did receive your email that you sent, I think also to Tab last week, and have looked at it quite thoroughly as it relates to the controlled intersection comment that I made at last month's meeting. I was intending to refer to the controlled condition for cars approaching 47th. But also we'll offer that we've sent a letter, I think you've received from our office of it, from our ADA consultant. And that's going to be our approach. We think that the best way to handle this is the sidewalk that will be constructed by the development happening on the east side of 47th. But I do intend, and I've done this across the city since I'm still fairly new, going to the site and experiencing it for myself. I've done a little bit of that in the area, but I intend to do that here in the next few weeks and would be happy to continue the conversation.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize that the chair has discretion to extend public comment time for extenuating circumstances. And I think in the case of this speaker, I should have done that. So I apologize, Amelia. Does anyone else have any comments on what this person shared? Let's continue the conversation offline, and thank you, Amelia, for participating.
We have
Veronica, is there
one
anyone
more
else?
hand.
Okay.
Alexi Davis, would you be able to confirm you're able to speak?
Me. All
Oh,
right,
we can hear you now.
great. I just wanted to thank staff for the great pavement management work this year, especially on Folsom. The work that's been done so far really makes it so much more comfortable, and it's just so great. I do have one comment, however. today while riding northbound on Folsom through the green paint at Pearl. I had a driver making a left turn towards me and I had to hit the brakes. That was not so comfortable. So I look forward to the signal practices being updated and worked on this year so we don't have as many permissive left turns and it can be comfortable for everybody there. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexi. Yes, the pavement management program work on Folsom and on Pearl and other places is really creating better surfaces for bicyclists and others. Do we have anyone else, Veronica?
Yes, we have one more. Lynn, will you be
Okay,
able to
thank-
confirm you're
Lindsay,
able to speak?
Darcy, if you were going to extend Amelia, then why don't you before me? She's right here.
Go ahead, Lynn. Go ahead with your.
What I asked you a question, why don't you?
You want me to go back to Amelia?
Yeah, she wanted extra time. You didn't give it to her. You said that you could and you
Okay.
would, so why don't you?
Well, I
I mean,
said I
very simple
just
question.
learned that I could. If you'd like to pause your comment and we can come back to you, we can go back to Amelia.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm not sure. Meredith, can you tell me how much time we have discretion over?
I don't hear
I
what
would
Mary.
say up to 5 minutes total.
5 minutes total. Okay, so how about Veronica? Let's go back. Lynn, if you could mute yourself and we'll go back to Amelia for 2 more minutes, if she would still like to speak.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Yeah.
I'm sorry
so-
about that, Amelia.
No, totally okay. Yeah, no, I just, yeah, so I guess I wanted to bring it up just because I think the whole 47th Street corridor in general is safe. So even if it makes it okay for me to cross down at Diagonal, it doesn't change the fact that that's a dangerous intersection, and people who are going north from that intersection, we know that people don't walk that far south to go to a light and then go back north. So I'm curious what stands between getting some traffic calming measures along 47th Street. Is it because of money? Is there a disagreement that this is an unsafe area and an unsafe street? Are we worried about annoying drivers? Are there other parties that we don't want to upset? I just want to understand what is stopping it. And then my last question is just what can those of us who are concerned about the area do to try to change things there? So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Amelia, and I apologize again for
No.
extending your time. Okay, thank you. Okay. Any further response to Amelia's comments?
Yeah, I'll be happy to follow up with our staff on the idea of traffic calming. I do think there may be some limitations there on just because of the traffic volume of 47th as it relates to traffic calming, but I'll be happy to follow up and get back.
Okay, so we'll continue to engage with her about that issue. Thank you. Okay, Lynn, Veronica, can we go ahead and let Lynn give her comment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Lynn,
I don't understand why Blythe got involved with my street lamps. Is this a tab issue? Because it still is not solved. Scott Miller, is that his name, Blythe? I think. I can look on my thing and see. Scott Porter, okay? I was somehow I've talked to 50 different people. No one knows who's already talked to someone else. I thought this was already in the pipeline because XL Energy I had a street light out and blinking for like 5 years. XL never did anything about it. I never complained about it until my catalytic converter was stolen, $3,700. So then we changed our streetlight or ownership to the city. And somewhere in there, in about the last 5 months, XL replaced my street lamp, which was immediate. As soon as I called them, they don't apparently monitor them, but when I called them, they were out in an instant and they fixed the lamp. But then it went out again. Now, if it's flickering for 5 years, I don't think these things are designed to go out every 5 minutes. They're LEDs. They're expensive to put in and replace. And I don't get why, this is like the potholes. We need $400 million for me to pay for basic infrastructure stuff when you're doing Sundance and when you're pushing growth and density as fast as you can do and congestion. And I don't want to leave my house because going to anywhere east to any big stores, like bigger grocery stores, is like minutes and minutes at the stoplights in the heat. And I'm already from the city of Boulder giving me a lovely retrofit that's a complete disaster, that's a liability to me. And I'm freezing cold in the winter and hot in the summer. Then I have to go out on my bike and be hot. I drive my car 4 to 6 times a year. Tell me anyone that's on the board or anyone else that's calling in, how many people do you have that drive their car 4 to 6 times a year? Well, I'll tell you, 0. And here I'm trying to do this. And instead, I'm out in the heat and I'm sitting there at an intersection where everyone's just sitting there. Well, they're in all their air-conditioned cars and I'm burning up. And I'm 73 years old.
Thank you, Lynn. I hear you. Thank you. Okay. Let's move to our next order of business, which is the staff presentation and tab feedback on the draft 2027 to 2032 capital improvement program project. Garrett is presenting on that. Would you like to introduce that topic, Blythe?
Would love to, Darcy. And this is the second session for TAB to prepare for a recommendation to City Council. And I do want to just emphasize again, as I did last month, this is one of the items that's specifically mentioned in the Boulder Revised Code as one of TAB's purposes to review all city transportation capital projects. And so I'm very appreciative of Garrett's hard work and longstanding work in this space of our capital improvement plan. We'll have a bike tour here later in the summer, and then a public hearing next month. And so without further ado, I'll hand off to Garrett for the capital improvements program.
Good evening, TAB. As Blythe said, I'm Garrett Slater, the Senior Engineering Manager for Capital Projects for the Transportation and Mobility Department. So good to be with you this evening to present the second of 3 sequence of presentations. And as we talked about last month, we're here to present the draft CIP for 27 to 32, and we'll get into what lies ahead through the remainder of the presentation. This will look familiar to you because we are going to follow the same order of presentation as we did in last month's, which is describing what the CIP is, going through the funding, talking about next steps, and then inviting your feedback. So what is a CIP? The Capital Improvement Program is the primary way that we take care of what is literally billions of dollars of assets. I think the last time we tried to put a dollar value to just the pavement alone in the city, we came up with about $1 billion, and that was done in 2018, knowing that prices have shot up 50% since then. When you throw together all the value of our pavement, our bridges, our sidewalks, it is billions, plural, of dollars in assets that we have to take care of. And that is different from the operations budget, which is responsible for the daily operation and maintenance of the system. The improvement program and projects take care of the major efforts to both take care of as well as enhance the system. And this is done in a manner that's consistent with the investment policies found in the 2019 Transportation Master Plan, with the highest priority being system operations and maintenance, Vision Zero and travel safety, and the lowest being quality of life features such as sound walls. So the CIP also makes investments in a manner that's consistent with the city's sustainability, equity, and resiliency framework. And we work to abide by the 6 tenets that you see here on the screen, with accessible, connected, and safe being primary focus areas of our transportation investment. So the draft 27 to 32 CIP represents approximately $157 million of total investment, with approximately $25 million in grants as of today. The average fluctuates each year considerably due to the timing of large projects and when the grant dollars are available to be spent. And then on the more sustainable side of things, the programs currently comprise about $9 million a year, but in the draft that will be going up to about $12 million per year. So the funding for the CIP is made possible through the Transportation Fund and the Transportation Development Fund, and the transportation development that occurs inside the Boulder Junction footprint is also development fund revenue that is confined just to that geographic area. So the great majority, as you see on the pie chart here, comes from the Transportation Fund, which is largely sales tax. And then we also get gas tax revenue that flows down from federal sources, through the state and then to us as a local agency, just like all other local agencies in the state. Our portion of the gas tax is determined by how many centerline miles of roads that we have. And so because we don't add very many new centerline miles of street each year, the portion of the gas tax that comes to Boulder actually goes down a little each year relative to a number of the communities around us that are growing and adding lots of new streets each year. I think we've added less than a mile in the last decade. Just a little more info on sort of the gas tax matters there. And of course, grant funds represent an important part of our funding as well. And so the key issue that we highlight regularly is that it's great that we've got a dedicated funding source. The trade-off to that is that it is made possible primarily by sales tax. And as you all know, sales tax is subject to sales tax cycles. So when the economy is doing well, the sales tax revenues are going up. And when it's not doing well, those revenues go down. And we're in a time right now of declining sales tax revenue, which is making more difficult our ability to fund programs and projects within the CIP. And additionally, there's a 0.15% sales tax that is currently dedicated to the Transportation Fund that will sunset in 2029 and will go to the general fund. And the understanding at present is that 0.15% that is coming from the Government Capital General Fund will be dedicated towards transportation CIP investments. So we hope and expect that to be the case. And then, of course, we have the good news that the transportation maintenance fee is in place and we'll start collecting those revenues in 2027, which will really help our ability to take care of the system. So as you know, we are always open and eager to pursue grant opportunities where they are available. And so each one of these grants that you see here on the slide are included and represented in our current CIP, whether it's the Denver Regional Council of Governments, DRCOG TIP, or CDOT Highway Safety Improvement Program, or HSIP, or Transportation Alternatives, TAP, Safe Routes to School, through CDOT, and then the federal Safe Routes or Safe Streets for All as well. So we highlight this each time we talk about the CIP, that with the purchasing power, inflation working against us, that on average over the last several years, inflation's been going at 5% a year, and you can see what happens to the purchase power of $1 over the 7-year period at 5% inflation and 10% inflation. And then more specifically, we have this data from the Colorado Construction Cost Index that shows us how the costs have been moving over the last 6 years. And so you can see that the blue line here showing the yearly inflation has gone down last year, but which is good. But all that means is that prices, instead of going up 12 to 10% as they were during the COVID years, are now going up 5%, which is more of the average we've seen over the last 20 years. So the overall trend line is that an item that might have cost $100 in 2019 is now costing us close to $200 in 2026. So our CIP is comprised of two major components, one being the projects, the standalone projects that have a definite beginning and end, and then the programs that are ongoing. And so those entail things like the pavement management program and the sidewalk program, which we'll get into here in a moment. Over the last several years, the division of investment in the system has been split roughly 50-50 because we have the onset now of the transportation maintenance fee to help support the capital maintenance line items. We now have a 60-40 split in favor of multimodal programs versus projects. So that's really great news. That the increased funding from the TMF will allow us to better take care of all those billions of dollars of assets that are spread around the system. So as was the case last month, I am joined this evening by Lindsay Mers and Brian Wiltshire, who are both civil engineering managers in the capital projects team. And I'm going to hand it off now to Lindsay to provide an overview of the draft CIP programs, and then we'll hand it off to Brian to highlight some of the projects in the draft 2732 CIP.
Thanks, Garrett. Hi, everyone. So I'm Lindsay Mers, and like Garrett mentioned, I'm a civil engineering manager in our work group. And I'm going to step through the programs. And like Garrett mentioned, this might sound very familiar. So this table lists the overall view of the recommended allocation of the funding for the various programs in the city for the draft 2027 to 2032 transportation CIP. Garrett has mentioned this, but I do want you to take note that the funding for the programs has increased to $92 million compared to previous years. And once again, this is primarily due to the revenue generated from that transportation maintenance fee. So the various programs are all listed. It's the pavement management program, the sidewalk and pedestrian programs, multi-use path programs, greenways, bridge asset management, Vision Zero with the PMP integration, and then the streetlight maintenance program. I'm going to step through these in some detail. So the pavement management program, or we call it the PMP, this helps keep our streets safe and in good condition. And the program manages approximately 300 miles of streets, with each street inspected every 3 years. So these inspections provide the city with the information on the current pavement conditions, and this will help identify where future repairs are needed. From spring through fall, streets are prioritized for pavement treatments based on their condition. Streets that are in good condition receive preservation treatments such as crack seal and chip seal, while streets in poor or failed condition receive more intensive treatments like mill and overlay, or even possibly full reconstruction. And so the PMP also supports other city initiatives, including Vision Zero and the Core Arterial Network, or the CAN. It incorporates safety improvements such as bike lanes or improving sidewalks, and those are incorporated into the annual resurfacing projects. A recent example of this is Moorhead Avenue. It was resurfaced last year with reconfigured striping, and that striping then created wider buffered bike lanes, and then some median islands were added to help reduce speeds. So the PMP uses a pavement condition index, or PCI, to prioritize which streets need attention, and that is a scale of 1 to 100. So as a reminder, if it gets a score of 75 or above, it's considered good condition and no major repairs are needed. 45 to 75 requires some structural work, and below 45 likely requires full replacement. And so the city's goal is to maintain an average street rating of 75 or higher, which is considered good condition. And the pavement management program is identified in the TMP as a priority one investment. So the city has several programs focused on improving sidewalks and then pedestrian safety. This includes the Pedestrian Facilities Enhancements Program, which addresses missing sidewalk links and connecting pedestrian crossing treatments. There's the Pedestrian Facilities Repair and Replacement Program, and then there's the Sidewalk Maintenance Program. So the sidewalk maintenance budget funds the miscellaneous sidewalk repair program. And so this provides for sidewalk repairs throughout the city. Property owners share in this cost. They pay 50% of the repairs for any sidewalks that are adjacent to their property. Let's see, the pedestrian facilities budget provides ongoing funding for installing missing sidewalk links and improving pedestrian crossings. Crossing improvements are prioritized citywide and may include items such as median refuge islands, crosswalk lighting, flashing signs, signage, pedestrian signals, just to name a few. And so these programs are identified in the TMP as a priority one investment, and the various implementation locations are prioritized each year using condition level and program guidance documents. So the city's multi-use path programs, that includes the multi-use path enhancement budget as well as the multi-use path capital maintenance budget. And so together these programs are dedicated to enhancing and then maintaining. The city has approximately 80 plus miles of multi-use paths, and those paths help support our pedestrian and bicycle travel. So the capital maintenance budget provides major maintenance for off-street multi-use path network. Some of the tasks or some of the maintenance items it might include is replacing some concrete panels. We'll sometimes flood-proof our underpasses and even redeck pedestrian bridges. The enhancement budget, that budget's used to expand our existing path system. Sometimes we'll construct new paths, or maybe we'll even convert existing sidewalks into multi-use paths. This budget recently funded the Valmont Multi-Use Path Project, which was a CAN project. So these programs are identified in the TMP as a priority one investment. And the various projects are prioritized using condition level. We use our pedestrian bridge inspection reports and then maintenance frequency. So the Bridge Asset Management Program, that funds repairs for approximately 300 major and minor bridges and structures that are aging or even near the end of their service life. So this funding allows the city to complete capital repairs that are not typically eligible for the grant funding. This then helps extend the life of these structures and reduce or avoid the need for full replacement. So repairs can include lining of existing culvert pipes. We can apply a waterproof membrane to a bridge deck. We can make even structural repairs to concrete and steel elements, such as the collapsed wing wall that you can see on the bottom photo, which is at 48th and Goose Creek. But when a structure does require full replacement, such as the other photo, which is a 15th Street box culvert, this budget can also fund that replacement. So it's also important to note, and I like to say this, that major and minor structures include more than just the roadway and pedestrian bridges that you can commonly see as you're driving or walking around the city, but they also include the box culverts and the pipes that are located beneath our roads. So this program is identified in the TMP as a priority one investment. The Bridge Health Index is used to prioritize that work. And the Bridge Health Index is a bridge performance measure to rate the overall health of the structure. And then at the end of 24, the city acquired all streetlights from Xcel Energy and is now responsible for their maintenance. And so the Streetlight Capital Maintenance Program will fund this work. As we continue to transition from Xcel to city management, we are identifying more issues than we had anticipated. These issues have included corroded or damaged poles and that require repair or replacement. And so to address these needs, we need to expand our maintenance efforts and ensure dedicated funding is available to respond quickly when issues arise. So the map located on this slide shows the current conversion progress. So this program is identified in the TMP as a priority 1 investment, and we are currently working on creating an inventory of the streetlight conditions so that this work can all be prioritized. Brian?
All right. Thanks, Lindsay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Wiltshire, and I'm a civil engineering manager in the Transportation and Mobility Group, primarily responsible for implementing CIP projects, and I'll be covering the Transportation CIP projects portion of tonight's presentation. This Transportation CIP project slide represents projects that are proposed for the CIP budget years 2027 through 2032. Projects already in planning or construction, such as the baseline improvements and the Broadway intersection improvements, aren't shown since they've already been funded in prior approved CIP years. The table you're seeing shows the budgeted amount for each project and in which year the funding will be received out to the year 2032. Next slide, please. This TIP and grant local match and TMP implementation slide details the various funding sources such as TAP, Safe Routes to School, SS4A, and HSIP. As we receive funding for specific projects, the local match comes out of the T&M CIP budget and goes into each specific project. Garrett, next slide. Now I'm going to highlight a few key projects, not the entire CIP list, but just the ones of wide-ranging interest. First project is the Highway Safety Improvement Program, HSIP for short, South Boulder Road and Manhattan Circle intersection project. This project represents a TMP investment priority 1. Design of this project will be in 2027, and construction of this project is anticipated in years 2027 and 2028. Total funding for the project is at $1.59 million, with $1.34 million of that coming from grant funding. Garrett, next slide. The second project is the 30th Street final design and construction from Walnut Street to Diagonal Highway. This project is continuing the engagement final design this year with construction anticipated in years 2027 and 2028. This current project also represents TMP investment priorities 1 and 2, with total funding for the project coming in at $9.3 million, of which $7.4 million of that is coming from grant funding. This project is also part of the core arterial network corridors. Garrett, next slide. The third project being presented tonight is the East Arapahoe Safety Project. The goal of this project is to improve multimodal safety and connectivity through the corridor from 28th Street to 38th Street. East Arapahoe is part of the CAN corridors and represents TMP investment priorities 1 and 2. Design of the project began in 2025 and is expected to be complete in 2026. The right-of-way and construction phase of the project is then anticipated to begin in 2027 and run through 2029, with total funding for the project at $12 million and 9.4 of that coming from grant funds. Next slide, please. Fourth project tonight is the 26th Street Bridge at 4 Mile Canyon Creek. The existing bridge is the second worst rated bridge based on the Bridge Health Index in the entire city. This project represents TMP investment priority 1. Construction of the project is anticipated to begin in 2031, and the total funding for the project coming in at $8.4 million. Garrett, next slide. Okay. Next up is the Folsom Bridge over Boulder Creek deck replacement project, which is representing capital maintenance. This project is also part of the CAN corridors and represents TMP investment priority 1. Construction of the project is anticipated to begin in 2028, with funding for the project coming in at an even $5 million. Garrett, next slide. All right. Last up, the South 30th Street from Colorado to Aurora design and construction project. The goal of this project is to improve multimodal connectivity through the corridor from Aurora to Colorado, which was improved previously as part of the 30th and Colorado Underpass project completed in 2023. This project also represents TMP investment priority 1, with construction anticipated to begin in 2027-2028. Funding for the project at $3.6 million, with $3 million coming from grant funding. And the next steps will be presented by Garrett.
Garrett, do you have anything to add at the end of this?
I think he's on mute.
You're muted, Garrett.
I'm sorry, I was talking away. I didn't even realize that I was
Sorry.
So next steps are that we will hold the public hearing and the final presentation on the CIP for 27 to 32. And after that, it will move forward to the planning board also in September. And then there will be a study session with city council in late September, and as well first and second reading of the budget and the CIP in October with city council. And also we are excited that looks like we'll be able to get a bike tour done in September. We just need to get a date selected. And so those are the next steps. And from here, we are happy to take questions. The memo included highlights of the changes in the CIP, what's changed from 2631 to 2732. We've presented some highlights to you this evening of some elements of the CIP that have changed. And so we are interested in hearing your questions and the feedback that you have about what's been presented.
Yeah, thanks very much, Garrett. Let's start with questions. Go ahead, Michael.
Question for Lindsay, I think, but
Can you speak a little more loudly, Michael?
Oh, my microphone again. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'll to everyone in my house, I'm shouting.
Sorry.
It's a question for Lindsay. I noticed in a couple of the slides, and this just made me not understanding exactly how the TMF works, but there were some maintenance items like for sidewalks and streetlights where I didn't see any TMF allocation for that. And I'm wondering why that was. Since those are, I could understand enhancements not getting TMF money, but I thought maintenance was what TF money was supposed to be for. And so I was surprised that in those two areas, there wasn't any TMF allocation.
I can respond to that question. It's a good question, a good observation, Michael. So the the top item represents enhancements. So as you astutely noted, that would not qualify for TMF funding because the TMF is intended to go purely towards maintenance items. So that takes us to the bottom two, excuse me. And so of those two, the second line is the proactive sidewalk program, where we identify a geographic area. We've got the city mapped into 30 geographic areas, and we go into an area and we work on all the sidewalk upgrades and the ADA upgrades that are needed inside that area. When the program was initiated and conceived in 2010, the thought was that we would be able to get through an area in 1 year. Experience has shown it takes 2 to 3 years to get through an area. And so because this is the program where we as the city are going in and doing the work, this is where we are allocating the TMF revenue in the pedestrian realm. The bottom line is for the reactive sidewalk program. So this is where we wait for residents that say, I would like to, and because as a reminder to TAB, all sidewalk maintenance by city code is the responsibility of the adjacent landowner. So the fact that we have sidewalk funding programs is above and beyond what is required in the code, but it speaks to our recognition that sidewalk infrastructure is important and recognizing that walking is a fundamental and important mode of transport to get around the city. And so the proactive is where we're going to put the TMF because that's where we can do the most good. As opposed to the sidewalk maintenance program is if a resident says, I would like to replace the sidewalk in front of my home or my property, we will go partner and pay 50-50 with that landowner. And so we generally have enough budget in that line item to address all the requests that come in a given year. as you might imagine, that the number of requests fluctuates from year to year. Some years we get quite a few, and then other years we don't get as many. But the middle line there is where we pick and we say we're going to address all the needs in that area. And then when we do that, we do ask a contribution from the adjacent landowner, but we cap it at $450. So whereas the average bill might be $2,000 to $3,000 for a homeowner to if they were to request it with the bottom line, if we're imposing that repair on them to keep our facilities ADA compliant, then the maximum contribution is $450.
Okay, thank you. I understand.
Okay, other questions? Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, just a clarification. Something struck me when I saw that Folsom Bridge slide. I had thought also that there was something going on where 17th crosses Boulder Creek, but it's possible I was confusing that with Folsom.
Yes, we do not have a project identified for the 17th bridge, which as you make your way south turns into University. The Folsom Bridge is not going to be fully replaced. It's just the deck. So for lack of a better term, there's a colloquial term for the degradation that's happening in the Folsom superstructure. It's called concrete cancer. And so before that concrete cancer spreads to the substructure where the real cost is, which is the foundation, we need to get that bridge deck replaced. And where we can do that at a cost of $5 million. If the concrete condition spreads to the substructure, we're looking at a $20 million bridge replacement cost. And so we want to get that done here in the next couple of years.
Okay, was there something identified in 17th Street as well, or was that my confusion?
There's nothing in the CIP identified for 17th Street, no.
Thanks.
Garrett, if nobody else has any other questions right now, Garrett, I'm just curious if there are any challenges or questions that you anticipate coming up as this, as your presentations go forward and you go to council. I'm curious about these, the proposed changes to the CIP and if there's anything that you're concerned about in terms of, council challenges or anything like that. Is there anything that you think is particularly difficult to, fund or agree on here?
Yes, so I'll identify a few highlights, and I appreciate the question, Darcy. I think we identified the first one, which is why is everything so expensive? And I'll add, so inflation and construction costs in general are going up each year. But we also have something that I like to remind folks from time to time is that we pay a Boulder premium for construction work to happen here in town, and that's not a formal thing we pay. Boulder's a very hard place for contractors to do work. It's very dense. There's not a lot of places for them to set up their equipment and their staging sites. So that adds to transport costs, hauling equipment in and out, hauling materials in and out on a regular basis, whereas opposed to if they can have a dedicated larger site, that makes their lives easier. We have a lot more pedestrian and bicycle traffic than your average job site in other communities. And so we've had contractors even this year tell us it's been great working with you all, but we're not coming back. And we see pricing reflected in the costs of these projects, that it's harder to do projects and construction here. So those are headwinds that we're going into. From a funding side, I would say that you all are well aware and briefed of the questions that have been sort of surrounding the transportation maintenance fee. And it feels like we've recently passed a point and hit an important milestone where it feels like those questions have sort of been settled. And so hopefully we can move into counting on that TMF supplementing the needs of the maintenance of the system. And then finally, I guess I would say one area that's a little bit of a question mark is the loss of the 0.15% dedicated to transportation. We have a verbal commitment that 0.15 will be replaced with general funds, but in a hard year, it remains to be seen. Will that 0.15 remain in place, or will it lose out to more attractive project choices in other departments? So, and that's just me. I'm not representing the voice of the entire department. I'm just voicing my own concern that it's an unknown. We have not been in that situation before, and we won't know what that's like until we get to 2030 and beyond.
Yeah, thank you. Those are really important points. And I think what you call the Boulder premium and the challenge of our projects and the nature of our projects is interesting, but it's also reflective of our values, right? The way that we're really trying to, create more multimodal density. And to that, I just want to ask one more quick thing before I let you speak, Trini. I'm curious about how well people understand the programs versus the projects, and I feel like they're quite well delineated. But I'm curious if you get questions about that. I just want to make sure, I keep coming back to communications and the importance of people really understanding how things work and what's really going on. And I think we saw we got an important reminder of that this past city council meeting. And I just want to make sure that there's a lot of clarity around programs versus projects and how those are funded. And if you have anything to say about that distinction.
Yes. So I think it's important for folks to understand, and we try very hard to articulate that as clearly as possible in these materials and when we're talking and engaging with other decision makers in the community, that capital maintenance programs are really important, and our ability to be able to fund important sort of sub-projects within a program. And I'll point to because if they were part of an operational budget versus being in a CIP, it really limits our flexibility to be able to address project needs. So we had we have a bridge project that's actually last night we implemented lane closures on Arapahoe. And so we were looking to get that bridge done starting last fall, but we ran into some permitting issues. And if that project budget, or that program budget, I should say, was operational, the funding would have been lost at the end of the year. Whereas with the capital program, there's a capital carryover, so that funding stays in place. So we can count on that budget still being in place so that we can not have to reprogram and ask for that bridge to be rebudgeted again. We know it's safe and it's going to happen. We just need to wait until we get the permit in place to be able to do the bridge work. And so having the majority of our capital maintenance be able to be funded from a programmatic perspective versus an operational allows us to really focus on a just-in-time sort of delivery of approach of giving the system what it needs when it needs it.
Yeah, thank you. That's really clear. And it does seem like, kind of projects as described in the CIP are really, grant funded or externally funded. And it's a very, very clear, thing that you're doing, whereas programs are ongoing buckets that allow for continual improvement of a certain type. Is that accurate?
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, great. I think that's just an important distinction to make sure that people understand. But thank you for the presentation and for the materials. Trini, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Darcy. Yeah, so I was just wondering, like, if you have a list of the Safe Streets for All projects that are mentioned here, like what specifically you're speaking to, and if those are being somehow compromised because of what's happening at a federal level, or if they're not, maybe they're not. I don't know. I know that there's a lot of speculation about the funding because of what's happening, but
Yes, so our projects are not in jeopardy. We are actively working on them right now. In fact, we just submitted
amazing.
our first quarterly report to the Federal Highway Administration a few weeks back. And so two of the projects, the major projects that are funded by that grant, were highlighted this evening, the East Arapahoe project that Brian mentioned, as well as the North 30th Street project. Both of those are made possible due to that grant program. So all things are all efforts are moving forward with that.
That's amazing. That's great news. Thank you, Garrett.
Great, thank you. Any other further questions? Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, just because you brought up the Arapahoe Bridge, I was remembering that it's actually two bridges, one in each direction, and I think that the one that's on the south is older and in worse condition, and just wondering if you could give us an update on what the timeline is. I believe they're both scheduled to be replaced at some point.
Yes, so I should clarify the Arapahoe Bridge I referenced is the bridge, the pedestrian and bicycle bridge only that's over South Boulder Creek. So that's just sort of near Cherryville
Okay.
and near the golf course. And the bridges you asked about are over Boulder Creek,
Right.
which is west of Foothills Parkway. And so the bridge replacements there are definitely a top priority for CDOT, and they are eager to get those bridges replaced and funded. However, one of the challenges we have at present is that the replacement of those bridges cannot be permitted in the floodplain at this time. Because the floodplain the mapping has changed according to our policy of floodplain permitting as well as FEMA's. The bridges that are built today and in place, we would not be able to get a permit for what's there today, even if we put back exactly what's there. And so we have to demonstrate that with the replacement of those bridges, we're not creating a rise in the floodplain. So our partners in the utilities department are conducting a study to understand what sort of remapping and mitigation efforts we can implement to not cause a rise in the floodplain so that we can work with our partners at CDOT on those bridge replacements. And you're correct, Mike, that the westbound bridge is much older. And so we do have a commitment from CDOT that until they're replaced, that they will keep an eye on them. They're going out every 90 days to inspect and check those structures to make sure that they're safe.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Any further questions? Oh, Blythe, go ahead.
I just wanted to add, Darcy, the question a few moments ago, and I appreciate Garrett answering it about the kind of reliability of our projects as they go through the political process and the costs of them. A couple of things I just wanted to note. I'm still new here, but just speaking of the Boulder premium, I wanted to add that one of the things that I've experienced in our construction sites is that really consistently, they seem to be very well. This is a credit to Garrett and Brian and Lindsay and their colleagues. They're very well maintained. The traffic control is excellent. As somebody that bikes and walks around, I've not interacted with a construction site, and I interact with lots of them where we don't have the right kinds of traffic control. And while we might call this a premium, I might argue that that's what all cities should be doing. But I think that Boulder sets itself to a basic standard to assure that people can get around in construction sites and they're kept clean and safe. And I just wanted to add that comment that I think is a testament to Garrett and his staff on how we manage our construction projects and how we manage these projects in general. And then secondly, I just wanted to highlight, and this is sort of the opposite of the question, I think the projects that are my gut, and this is just me, are going to be most stable are the ones that really commit to assuring that our existing infrastructure is handled and maintained. So much of the CIP that Garrett and his colleagues are bringing forward to you all is about maintaining what we already have. And I think that's super, super important, especially with the construction costs that are going up everywhere. I've seen other communities that fall really far behind, and it can be very challenging to continue to create enhancements if we don't do those basics right. And I just want to lift that up. That work, I think, is appreciated politically at the council level. And we, I think, genuinely work very hard to make sure that our bridges and the paving condition of our roads and all of the things that you don't necessarily notice that make the street, that make the city work well, are being tended to very responsibly. So I just wanted to add those comments.
Yeah, thanks, Blythe. Well, and just adding on to that a little bit, I think it's to our credit that we don't get very much from the gas tax, the highway fund, because we're not adding new miles of, center line roads, as you said, Garrett. I mean, we're really trying to maintain what we have, do that for the good of our community and to enable multimodal access. And very much appreciate your efforts there. Just one last thing came up for me. I'm curious if the PCI score is, if the methodology for that is available to the public. I wonder if people have any opportunity to sort of, look at what, I think we might have talked about this before, but I don't recall where that scoring methodology or mechanism is stored. Is there a way for the public to sort of see that so they can understand what a certain score looks like or feels like?
Yes, I believe we describe that on there's a pavement management program website, and I think that we describe it, but I think your suggestion to have some visuals that depict for example, PCI of 3040 would look like compared to a 6070 versus a 9100.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I think that would be really helpful so that people understand why why funds are put to certain projects, certain places, and maybe not others. So if it's possible to make that a little more transparent, that would be great. Yeah, Blythe.
I'm sorry, that's my hand from a moment ago, Darcy. I didn't.
Oh, sorry.
If I did,
Okay.
I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to raise it
that's
again.
all right. Yeah, thank you, Garrett, for considering that possibility, that suggestion.
Thank you for the feedback. It's a good suggestion, and appreciate all the questions and comments.
Yeah, thanks. Well, appreciate that very much. We're right on time for moving to our next agenda item, which is the staff presentation and tab feedback on Boulder Creek Park, formerly the civic area design update. So we have Shohomi Kuriagawa, sorry, Shohomi. And is there someone who would like to introduce Shohomi, or do you want to just dive right in, Shohomi?
I will pass it
Go
really
ahead.
quickly to Stephen Riho.
Got it. Okay, thank you, Stephen.
Thanks, Blythe. So, hello everyone. My name is Stephen Riho, and I'm the Transportation Planning Manager here today to introduce Shohomi Kurigara, who is the project manager, joined by her colleagues from Boulder Parks and Recreation, Jake Minden, the Deputy Project Manager, and Allie Rhodes, the Department Director, as well as the design consultant Ryan Sand from Rios. Shohomi and Jake will present on the Boulder Creek Park work that was formerly called the Civic Area. You might remember they came to TAB last October to speak to the full scope from 9th to 14th Street, and today are here to share the next steps of design for phase 2 of the park, which goes from Broadway to 13th Street. This phase was approved to advance by City Council and is $18 million allocated from the CCRS tax. The work you'll hear about today is focused on connections to and through the park. Transportation and Mobility has been enthusiastically supporting this work as it sits at the convergence of two of the city's major bikeways, of the Broadway path and 13th Green Street that runs north-south, and the Boulder Creek path that runs east-west. We're excited to finalize key design details that ensure these corridors are improved alongside the park and continue to help folks connect to and through the downtown core while enjoying the park space for decades to come. With that, I'll hand it over to Shohomi and team to take you through their presentation.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. I'm going to pull up our presentation, so give me 1 second. And let me know if you can all see that and if that's in presentation mode. I see a thumbs up. Great.
Yep.
Okay.
Good to go.
Thanks, Tab, for having us back here. We're really excited to walk you through Boulder Creek Park's phase 2 for design. This agenda item is informational and no formal action is being requested of TAB at this time, but staff is asking and seeking for TAB's feedback on Phase 2 design to inform ongoing project development and the design in general. So we'll start with the overall Boulder Creek Park design, and I'll just walk you through a little bit of context and reminder from our last October meeting in 2025. We'll go through Phase 2 implementation, specifically on what's going to be under construction for the funding, and focus on the circulation and access. We'll walk you through some views of what the project will hopefully look like after construction, and then we'll talk about next steps with you all. Okay, so last we were here, it was October, and we looked at this site plan from 9th Street and 14th Street, like Stephen mentioned, Canyon to Arapahoe. It included the Arboretum path that connects up to CU and the hill beyond, with also recommendations and thinking about connections that go up into the north to downtown. So a lot of context to stitch into here for the design. And last we talked, council had approved the design in totality that you see here in April. So this was after about 3 windows of an engagement process with community. And the pink you see is the boundary for what Phase 2 implementation can cover for that 18 million in funding. So if I screen that back, you can see we're going to focus a lot of design improvements and walk you through what that might look like tonight. The dots that you see around the rest of the park are our signage and wayfinding opportunities. So trying to continuously unify the space and also provide wayfinding elements throughout the park. So we do have that opportunity to spread funding when it comes to wayfinding and signage in that way. So again, looking at the site zoomed out and holistically, the team really took a dive into key transportation connections, both existing and where we could find opportunity for proposed connections. Again, circulating throughout the park as well as stitching into the downtown fabric and down south and beyond the site. For what we can look to improve and implement is within that black boundary for Phase 2. So this is a zoom in, and I will hand it off to my colleague, Jake Minden, to talk about Phase 2 design and what the programming entails.
Hello, folks. Thanks, Shahomi. Yeah, we're going to dive into the design you see here, and then we'll go into some circulation diagrams for all the super fun stuff. So this is the Phase 2 design scope, everything that we have funding for right now, and we're in the midst of design. I'll point out some key programmatic elements, but it's important to know that all of this design, both this phase and previous and future phases, were based off of 3 windows of community engagement from 2024 to 2025, and also into this year, and the original 2015 Civic Area Park Plan. So those key programmatic elements, you can see the band shell on the top of your screen, obviously a key significant feature in the park. We have several different play areas. There's the iconic play, the orange bubble, kind of on the south half of the park. Directly north of that is a splash pad, which will have some water play. And then we have nature discovery kind of peppered in throughout the spine of that park. Also, there's the porch, which Shahomi will outline a little bit. It's a raised decking platform that will be used for seating, for folks enjoying food and beverage, connectivity from 13th into the park, and for general recreation under our beautiful tree canopy in that area. There are also smaller paths along the south side that weave through proposed garden beds for a nice planting experience, and then 13th Street, our converted festival street, which we'll talk more about later. Another important move that we're doing in this proposed design is the expanded green. So it's that long stretch of light green color you're seeing. This is a big move as it unifies the north and south half of the park that are currently divided by the ditch. We're able to do this expanded green because we are putting the ditch into a culvert underground and building park on top. So that's also helping some of the connectivity of the circulation network. And then 13th Street, which is providing the north-south connection along the Green Street, existing Green Street from Arapahoe all the way north along 13th to Iris, and then the east-west connections to and through the park. Okay, so we'll talk about two circulation diagrams. The first is daily use, and the second is event use. So on this daily use diagram, I'll orient you quickly. There's the navy blue line, that's the existing Boulder Creek path, which heads west to the Broadway underpass and south to the Arapahoe underpass. Then we have two solid medium blue lines that are multi-use paths that connect folks to the Boulder Creek path. And then the Festival Street, which is that wider dashed line running top to bottom. The Festival Street will function as the primary north-south connection for all pedestrians and cyclists. There will be a path of travel for cyclists down the center of that Festival Street. And you can also see 3 blue dots, which represent what we're calling Bike Plus parking, which will be parking for strollers, scooters, cyclists, cargo bikes, larger bikes. And those are spread out through the park. So there's one at the northern end at the intersection of Canyon and 13th, one on the south end at Arapahoe and 13th, in the similar location of where the existing B-Cycle station is. And then one in the middle, servicing some of the more densely packed play areas. The Festival Street along 13th is connecting north and south and honoring that existing Green Street connection I mentioned. And importantly, the conversion of the 13th into a Festival Street means there will be no daily vehicular travel and parking. So those uses will be removed from the site, and the only vehicular access will be for emergencies and for farmers market and vendors. And those guys are relevant to the next circulation diagram, which talks about event days. So we're anticipating this being 20% or less of the time and includes events such as the Boulder County Farmers Market and other programmed events that use the space. So the key differences here are the dismount zone, which mirrors an existing condition. The dismount zone exists for the length of the farmers market all the way north-south along 13th. And then you can see the horizontal orange line. That is an extended dismount zone along that multi-use path to ensure that there's maximum safety for folks, families, and kids using those play areas in that highly activated core of the park. The solid blue line that you're seeing going diagonally, that is our alternate multi-use path to enable cyclists to move from north to south or north to west along that path and connecting to the Boulder Creek path or the Arapahoe intersection to the south. And the main goal of that alternate multi-use path is to pull cyclists and pedestrians away from that really dense event activity.
And then, Jake, I would add too that we are studying with transportation. We're pulling folks interior to the park, again, away from that activated zone onto Boulder Creek path. We're also looking at a southern connection that will look at how access is achieved to Arapahoe and the on-grade crossing for Arapahoe. That will continue to study with transportation. So there's sort of this full north-south movement as well as movement into Boulder Creek path.
Yes, thank you for adding that. Okay, and I think we can look at, unless there's anything else, show me, we can look at some of these nice renderings. Okay, cool. So this is the event use day. You can see our lovely proposed shade structure designed to create a nice environment for the farmers market and other vendors and folks using this activated plaza space. This is a view from Canyon looking south along 13th. This is again an event day, so you see farmers market tents along the edges of that shade structure and pedestrian plaza space and pedestrian circulation down the center of that street. You can also see a cyclist about to embark on the alternate multi-use path in the interior of the park, again separating that really high density active zone from the path of travel. The next rendering shows a different view of that alternate multi-use path that is interior to the park. So this view, we're looking back at the intersection we were just standing in, looking towards Canyon and the intersection at 13th. And you can see this path of travel for cyclists, which is the alternate route when events are happening on 13th. This is a view looking at 13th under the shade shelter on a daily use or non-event day. You can see the sharrows along the center of the festival street and the path of travel for cyclists down the middle with pedestrian gathering and recreational space on the edges. Those pieces of furniture you're seeing are movable. Importantly, we're maintaining a certain width for the festival street, but this is the general sense of what the daily use of the street will be.
And so you can see that elevated deck to the right, and then just for context, Tea House, we're showing there's a little bit of this trellis you can see, so atrium is just to the left as well as Tea House.
Okay. And then a similar view looking north along 13th towards Canyon from the middle of the block. You can see more sharrows indicating that central path of travel for cyclists and activated edges for pedestrian use. I want to call out that there will be a visually clear path for pedestrians along the east side of this street in a similar alignment as the existing sidewalk. And then I think lastly for the renderings, this is a view of the intersection of the east-west multi-use path that connects the Tea House path to the Boulder Creek path as it meets the path of travel in the center of the festival street for cyclists.
Great, thank you, Jake. I'll walk us through next steps. So like we mentioned, the overall design was approved by council last year, both in full and phase 2 recommendations are moving forward. We're about at a 50% design, so that's what we call a design development phase. Feedback from TAB given here will be considered and incorporated into that design development phase. And then the team will move to site plan review. And so hopefully we're looking forward to that submitting at the end of this month. So that is coming up here pretty quickly, in which after site plan review, it'll go to planning board late 2026 to 2027. Construction documentation and permitting next year. And then we hope construction can stay on track for 2028, 2029. This project is a bit complicated. It does have several layers of permitting, including a FEMA process. So that's at the federal level. That's quite a big, lengthy process. So that permitting and general project milestones might be subject to change. So we just wanted to call that out, but we're hoping to stay on track here. Which brings us to the end of the presentation and looking forward to questions or feedback that TAB has.
Yeah, thank you both, Shahomi and Jake. Can you say a little bit more about why there's a FEMA component here?
Yeah, so the totality of the park is in the 100-year floodplain. So we have a lot to consider in terms of safety, flood insurance, and making sure that we're installing amenities that can withstand or are completely out of a flood.
Great. Thank you very much. I think I saw Mike's hand first.
Yeah, my understanding is 13th Street would daily use be not used at all by motor vehicles. Can you tell us about what modal filters would be on 13th Street? To
Yeah, it's a good question. And I would say one that we're still studying with transportation. So when you say modal filters, I'm assuming you're asking about barricades or traffic calming and or barricades. We are working with our design team and transportation on that. But it might be in the case of options like table topping, bollards, and something similar as a strategy, but we're still researching it in design.
Because yeah, I would imagine in farmers market you'd have some vehicles going into that street.
Yes.
So maybe something like a retractable bollard or something.
Yes, absolutely. Retractable or removable. Definitely have to and want to design to event loading and logistics of that vehicular nature. We also have to look to keep the street open and available for emergency access. So whatever we put as a barricade in the street has to be removable.
Yeah, and ADA access for the tea house and things like that. So perhaps that will come from the other side, the 14th Street side.
Yeah, you got it, Darcy. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Michael, go ahead.
Well, I think I saw in the renderings some texturing on the festival.
Oh, Michael, I'm sorry. You're really soft again.
Am I? Geez. Okay.
Sorry.
Shouting again. No problem. I think I saw on the festival street that you were going to use some texturing. It seems maybe to sort of encourage cyclists to stay in the center. And if that's what I was seeing, I think that's great. I thought that was because was one of my concerns when I originally saw the sort of stick diagram, that, oh boy, that's going to be a mess if people are just wandering around in there. Yeah, are those bricks or something that are they going to be raised a little bit that are extending towards the center of the festival street?
Yeah, I think we're studying all kinds of materiality in 13th Street. It's definitely something we have to look into and we have to consider for maintenance. So bricks or pavers sometimes come with a heavier maintenance load to them. But it could be something like colored concrete and banding, for instance.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, my experience is that texture is the thing that works. Colors, they suggest where you're supposed to be, but people very often ignore them. Both cyclists and pedestrians kind of get lost, they get confused, and they ignore where they're supposed to be, and that's it's a potential risk, especially on those daily use days when people are going to be maybe bombing through there on their way to someplace. Anyway, I had really a question. So it looks like during event days, you're planning for people to use this alternative MUP that joins up with the Boulder Creek path, and I think there's something of that already right now. But the issue, at least I experience when I try to use that route, is that is a very sharp turn for a cyclist, especially if you're on like a cargo bike or something like that, some urban aero. I could see there being lots of, bike ped conflict at that junction unless those turns are widened and smooth so that folks can kind of navigate their small boat around all the pedestrians. So that was just a thought. And then, yeah, I love this for the crossing that's at Great Arapahoe. If there is a bike path or multi-use, well, it'd probably be better if it was just a bike path that that thing you have in the hashed light blue, that might reduce a lot of conflict because then they would just be crossing the paths of the pedestrians kind of at one spot. They wouldn't be traveling with pedestrians. It looks like they'd mostly cross right before the terminus of that dismount zone. And I thought, yeah, that would be a pretty good approach. If you've got the room for it and can straight, it'd be nice if it was a little bit straighter for the cyclists. But we'll live. So anyway,
These are great
those were
comments. Thank
my
you.
thoughts.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. And along with that, the bike plus parking spaces. So the existing one, potentially expanding that. And then I really appreciate what you said about the B-cycle station being expanded for more bike parking. So thanks for hearing our suggestions last time about the importance of those amenities to make sure that people have safe and, nearby places to leave their bikes so they don't necessarily have to travel through this space, but can stay on the edges of it. Trini, go ahead.
Hi. Well, thank you so much for this. It's really exciting. I travel through that corridor all the time on my way to school. And I was just going to suggest, maybe it is a possibility to, at least for, I don't know, temporarily, or like, I don't know how it could be like a cyclical type of closure, but really closing it off to cars on one side and having all of the access come from 14th Street. I don't know how viable that is, but I think it would be a really exciting proposal. So, I don't know if, because honestly, I don't see a lot of traffic to begin with. It seems like it's very localized, but maybe it's just my experience. So I don't just want to throw that out there.
Trinity, I love the comment. I wanted to clarify with you. So just the note that you're asking, we're doing so daily vehicular closure. So if I'm everyday vehicle, I cannot access 13th and all of the diagonal parking will be taken off. Is your comment around taking all logistics access completely off of 13th? So anything servicing an event to set up or load, unload? Is that your question?
Well, I suppose, I don't know if we can set it up to be a more permanent thing, like where people just become accustomed to servicing through 14th. If that's something that's viable, maybe it'd be interesting to set it up to begin with, right? And not have to go back and kind of readjust but it's just like kind of like the cherry on top. It's not really that dire. I don't know.
Well, I would just add that a lot of the vendors, the farmers market vendors are actually vehicles. They actually have to pull vehicles in there and vend out of them. So I think that would be really challenging. And for the people who are setting up tents and stuff, they drive through there, drop off their stuff, and then go park and come back and set up, And so I think that would be really, really hard. But I appreciate what you're saying, Trini, about having it really, really clearly inaccessible by just regular drivers and most vehicles. But yeah, we do need to preserve ADA access, emergency access. And I think the logistical setup stuff is really unavoidable. I think you'd get a lot of pushback from the farmers market people if you said no vehicles can travel down 13th. For example, I was at the market on Saturday and, they were vending peaches out of the giant trucks that are like loaded up with refrigerated trucks loaded up with peaches from Palisade. And we don't want to miss those. So
no, 100%. No,
yeah.
100%.
So I hear you, and I think it's really a wonderful design to have it typically closed off to vehicles and to really minimize vehicle access, but to make sure that those that need to be on there can do so. Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll follow up on that, and then also on what Michael said. Well, I think in what I was talking about with the modal filters and retractable bollards, you see a lot in Europe. They're basically cylinders that rise up out of the ground and have lighting around them so that cyclists would see them, and then can be retracted into the ground to allow vehicles and emergency vehicles and vendors in when needed. But of course, That's a question of expense, I guess. And then on this bicyclists going through, I was just imagining a lot of times I find myself like where that B-cycle station is and wanting to get over to the west to like where the library is, and the way this path is drawn, that is another sharp angle there, since in order to get onto the creek path, you either have to take that sharp angle on the north or go south and cross the Arapahoe, which isn't very pleasant. So just considering traffic wanting to go from like that B-cycle station to the west, in designing that path there.
Yeah, Michael, those are good comments. And it kind of it probably alludes to and shows where we're at in design. You're absolutely right. We need to think about anything in the light blue that could be or is a multi-use path that we're designating on this plan. We'll work with transportation on their standard detailing and think about those turn radii. So that's a good catch.
Yeah, and on event days, the conflicts between pedestrians and bicyclists at that dark blue path are, really noticeable, and it's a challenging situation. So whatever we can do to filter out the two uses, that would be helpful. Michael, go ahead. You're
on mute.
muted.
Okay. Is this better now?
Yes.
So Mike's comment made me think about lighting. So I'm guessing that on daily use days, there's probably going to be ample lighting, and plus the navigation through the festival street's not going to be all that challenging for a cyclist. But if these events on event days extend into the evening hours, then I could see, navigating that faint blue line and any of the other blue lines for that matter, starting to get a little bit more difficult unless there's some kind of lighting there, or we've got those, what is it? I forget which country did it, but the glow in the dark paint bike path. So I could see navigation getting a little bit tricky if things are going to extend into the evening hours. So I'm just hoping you can find a solution to that particular challenge if you expect it to arise.
Yeah, it's a great comment too for wayfinding, but also security and safety. We're definitely looking into lighting throughout the interior of the park. And then hopefully with that festival street, you can see here that we're trying to account for not only wayfinding lighting, not only safety lighting, but more ambiance as well, so that that street feels really lit up, really safe, and therefore activated most times of the day and into the evening.
Great. And I have a question about kind of the shade structure. So here we're looking north toward Canyon. So the shade structure is really only at Canyon, like right. How far does it extend on 13th?
Yeah,
In your
so far,
concept?
the shade structure, you're right, Darcy, you got it, is only at our north, what we call an entry gate. So as you come off of Canyon and turn onto 13th, it's sort of our big signature piece. It also helps the farmers market because I'm sure you all have been out there. Shade is one of the major issues. I will say that for phase 2 funding, this is what we have funded, would be this northern shade structure. What we're studying and continually budgeting to see what can we do in a future phase and or what fits into the budget is either a shade sail option that comes in the middle of these string lights, as well as the original plan showed a secondary shade structure on the south end. So with budget, we're just moving through a lot of that now. And so far, what you see rendered here is what we have in the budget for that 18 million.
I see. Yeah, so it's really more of a gateway and not, it would be amazing if you could extend some kind of a shade structure or a feature that would provide some refuge along the street. But I get it. I mean, there's budget issues. Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, another existing friction point that I'm hoping you can design out of existence, which is when one is kind of entering this Festival Street zone, whether or not you're going to go straight through or go off and take one of these alternative paths. Right now, I mean, there's kind of that already. And there's a lot of ambiguity between what pedestrians and cyclists are supposed to do in this zone. And so to the extent you're going to be toggling back and forth between one state and the other on festival days versus non-festival days, it would be useful to have some feature that some static feature that gets flipped, so that it is then suddenly clear to everybody, oh, today I'm supposed to use this route, not to plow my way down through, because people do miss the dismount signs. And then also pedestrians kind of drift into the space where the cyclists are supposed to be passing through, and they're not aware of it because it all to them looks like sidewalk. So some way to kind of tease those out and to make clear which mode we're in on any given day would be super useful.
It's a great note for our environmental designer who's working on signage. And we will also be working closely with transportation on some of that signage as well, especially as it relates to the multi-use paths and all the bike lanes. So it's a great note. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, I really appreciate that comment, Michael, because I think it would be amazing to have just a color shift or like a little thing that lights up, that says, now you go here, and just like stop, go, signs. That would be really great because, yeah, there's a lot of confusion in these spaces, and I think it would be, I agree. I think that was a great idea, Michael. Okay, other comments, questions? We've got a little more time for this topic if there's more to share with Shahomi and her team. Thank you, Shahomi, for incorporating our past suggestions and for coming back with this update. Really appreciate it. I think it's looking really great. And I'm sorry that this is all that we have the funding for right now, but really excited to see it come together, and hope that the rest of the process continues on target.
Thank you so much, Darcy. We'll take all the feedback and get to design. So thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thanks.
Okay. Our next agenda item is matters from staff. So any staff who'd like to take this up, the special workshop for the citywide strategic plan?
I can do that, Darcy. We've got coming up in November, as you can see on your agenda, a special workshop for the citywide strategic plan on Saturday, November the 14th. It's a full day. We don't need to know TAB members now, and I will reveal, skipping ahead a little bit, that Matt Chisansky, who's running the citywide strategic planning process for the city manager's office, is going to come provide a matters item next month at our TAB meeting in September, and provide a little bit more information on the process, as well as talk a little bit more about that special workshop. But really, essentially, you all received an email. I think all the boards and commissions got an email about this special workshop and an opportunity for up to 2 members to volunteer to participate in this process. So that's what that's about. We can certainly entertain that now, or could wait until September where there's a little bit more information from Matt.
Yeah, thanks. I think we're eager to learn about what the citywide strategic plan will look like and how it differs from the departmental plans that we've been working with in the past, like the transportation master plan, and sort of how does transportation fit into this strategic plan, and what implications does it have for things like the CIP and other programs and projects. So we can wait to hear about that. I don't know if you have any details on that, or if you would rather that we just wait until next month to discuss that further.
Yeah, and we're actually, we did a lot of work, myself and colleagues in the department, and participating in the process. And I just realized I should probably mention that at the council meeting this Thursday, Matt is presenting what is called the World of Possibilities. This is at this point a process, and there's still opportunities to change. And I think this is the first opportunity for the council to get a glimpse into the process. So that would be a great opportunity for TAB members to watch either live or watch the recording to see Matt give that update to the council this Thursday.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great suggestion. And we should all make a habit of watching city council meetings regularly because there are lots of implications for our work. Great. I look forward to that and to the event. And I do hope, just to add a little note here again about process, that this is something that will be very publicly engaged and that people will really have eyes into the whole process so that it's clear what the city's intentions are and where the direction that we're going and what we know about the budgeting process and all of that. I think we've learned a lot about the importance of making budgeting and different aspects of the budget very transparent. So I look forward to hearing more about that as we go forward. Anybody have any other comments, questions about that? I don't see any, so let's go to matters from the board. So about the TAB CIP bike tour. So we had confirmed the date of September 2nd. I informed Meredith today that I am no longer available for that date, unfortunately, and I apologize for throwing a wrench in it. If we want to, so I know that Trini can't attend. Mike and Michael, were you planning on attending on the 2nd?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, both of you. So I guess it's up to us whether, and Hernan is also, I believe, not available. I'm not sure if you confirmed that, Meredith.
I have not heard back from him.
Okay, so we don't know if Hernan is available.
Originally, yeah, have not heard back at all.
Okay, so he's not confirmed his availability for that date.
Right.
Would you like to go forward with just the 2 or potentially 3 of you doing this bike tour on the 2nd, or should we look for another date? I know it's challenging in September. We have a lot of kind of conflicts with our availability. What does the board say?
I would encourage us to find another date.
Okay.
Great. Yeah.
Mike, what do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
My major concern is community cycles members availability, and I just know some of them have a conflict that weekend of the 18th and 19th.
Gotcha. Yeah, and again, I apologize for creating some challenge here, but why don't we, Meredith, if you could send around another sort of poll and with some potential dates, and I can be quite flexible. So it's just that week of the 31st that's I'm going to have to be out of town. So why don't we? Yeah, go ahead, Meredith.
The September TAB meeting is the 14th.
Gotcha.
And so the purpose really would be to do it before
then.
You need to make recommendation to city council. Friday, September 11th was another possibility. I'm happy, and Trini can't do that much. I'm happy to put it out there again. There just are not. Do you want
There's not a lot
to go for after the 14th?
I mean, I think that you're right that doing this before that recommendation makes the most sense, if at all possible. So if we look beyond that very first week, so the 11th, Trini's not available. Are there any other days in that second week of September that people could be available? And so the window really is like 4 hours, right? It's quite a long commitment.
Or
So why don't
it's half a day. Well, we were calling for 8 till 11:30. I don't see. Oh, Garrett's still on. In the past, it has sometimes been only 2.5 hours, like 8:30 till 11.
Yeah,
Okay, Garrett.
I would say we can go as short as 2 hours.
Okay,
Garrett,
two up to three.
does it have to be on a Friday? I mean, because I could do Monday the 8th or the 9th.
The 8th
I
is
just
a
have to.
Tuesday, but
Uh-huh.
Monday the 7th you could do a Monday. Monday would probably work for me as well. Monday the 7th
Yeah.
would, well, that's Labor Day. That's Labor Day.
Oh,
Right.
So people aren't going to be
Eight
working, and I
staff
can't
is
do it on the
not
8th.
available.
Yeah, I can't do it on the
let's see,
8th.
hold on.
What about the 9th?
9th.
I mean, the 9th,
I could
I could
do
probably, I could do the 9th. All right, let's do it.
the 9th. Woo!
Garrett, does that work with your staff?
Yes, we'll make that work.
We have a hold on that day.
8 to 11:30. Okay, and we can spread the word. Let's commit to that. Let's
Yeah.
do the morning of the 9th. I'll make it work. And yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah.
All right. Thank you all, and I appreciate your
Okay.
flexibility on that. Okay, great. Next item is open board comment. Does anyone have anything to add to our meeting this evening?
Sure.
Well,
I just wanted to say I'm encouraged by the CIP stuff and the CAN projects in particular, and just thought maybe at some point we could talk about part of CAN, which is the downtown loop study, which I realize there are funding issues, but that seems like something that should proceed at some point. The existing loop of one-way traffic around Pearl Street is an impediment to pedestrians and cyclists, as also can be an impediment to some businesses that can be hard to, if you're on a motor vehicle, it's hard to reach with the one-way loop. So I just wanted to raise our awareness of that CAN downtown as something.
Okay, do you have a question for Blythe or a recommendation about that?
Yeah, well, I just wondered if this is something staff is considering, or if it's just limited funds given our situation.
Yeah, Mike, it's one of the first things I heard about when I came here last fall, and I am, I guess, to answer the broadest question, I am aware of the interest in the downtown loop as a regular cyclist. I interact with I interact with those challenges as a cyclist quite a bit. It's not in our plan, and it is you hit the nail on the head. It's just one of those things that we don't have the resources for right now. It's one of those things that we envision happening someday.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Trini, go ahead.
Sorry. So my comment is just an observation about a street that's been, well, the sidewalk has been closed for months and it's been ready to go. It's part of the construction on Balsam from in between, I believe it's 9th and Broadway. So if we're heading eastbound, it's that side of the road, or the south side of heading eastbound. And it's just been closed. It's completed. The construction's way further down, closer to Alpine now. And it's just unusable. And I think it's kind of something worth looking into to see why it's closed. It doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And people are like they're being forced to cross over where the sidewalk's a lot narrower. So I think this beautiful new sidewalk should be available. So if
Yeah, Trini, I think that's part of I assume you're talking about, it is the northern boundary of what we call the Western City Campus, the project for the future location of Boulder City government. I'll be happy to follow up. We're not overseeing that project. If anybody on staff knows an update, invite anybody to chime in, but I can reach out to our colleagues in facilities and fleet who are running that project for the city and ask
Thank
for
you.
ask for an expectation on when that will be closed. I will say a lot of times construction projects, the limit of work remains the same because there's the contractors responsible for the site, so they often don't open parts of it, even though it might seem that they're finished, because they need to wrap up the whole thing. That might be the answer to the question, but I will gladly follow up, because if it's something that can be opened that can benefit the public, that would be good.
Yeah, hopefully that's the case, because it is, I mean, there's a lot of foot traffic there, and it's the access to the park from what the Boulder Hospital, or the, it's not the hospital, but it's the old hospital, where there's a lot of medical, and then there's the Whole Foods or the Ideal Market. I mean, there's a lot of traffic, foot traffic. So it'd be great to have access to that.
Yeah, it'll be really nice when that's all open and available to everyone. It's looking great, right? We just want to be able to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I just want to acknowledge the issue that somebody sent in an email to us in June that I've become aware is a hazard, where the underpasses at Colorado and 30th, where you have a steep ramp down, and bicycles can get up some speed, and then there's it's hard to see around that corner with the other ramp coming down. So going northbound and then the other one going westbound on the southeast side of that corner. And it seems like it's really crying out for some mirrors there to see what's around the bend. So I wonder what staff thinks about that idea.
Well, we don't do convex mirrors, Mike, but we have heard, we've heard lots of concerns about exactly the situation you're describing, and our staff have actually been working on something. I was checking my notes, and just today I got a confirmation that
I can chime in here, and looks
Please,
like
Garrett.
Devin's here with us as well. So I know that as recently as the end of last week, that staff were out marking some new delineators that will be placed to help channelize the entry into and out of those ramps. And so hopefully in the next week or so, I think we're looking at doing a total closure of the underpass in order to cause that installation to occur. And so nobody will be allowed in for probably 5-6 hours while those treatments are being deployed. And then just a quick comment, like Bly, to reinforce what Bly said, we do have a couple of mirrors deployed around the system. Unfortunately, in and around the campus, what we've learned is they primarily become graffiti targets, and they lose their effectiveness.
Okay, thank you. It's encouraging to hear something that's planned.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Garrett. I understood what that writer was talking about. I mean, it's this award-winning project, and it's really beautiful, but there are serious angles in there that are challenging when people meet in the underpass. And so, yeah, I'm glad that there are things happening. Good. Any other comment for the good of the board, or anything else people want to share? I don't have anything this evening, so future agenda topics. Blythe, would you like to go into that?
Oh, I'm still unmuted. Yes, both. I think we've mentioned both of next month's planned agenda topics previously, but just to reiterate, we've got our public hearing and the third of 3 installments on the capital improvement program next month, and we'll have a matters from staff item from Matt Shisansky to talk about the citywide strategic plan in September. And I'll just say I look forward to the CIP bike tour.
Yeah, great. I'm glad we were able to land on a date that works for everyone. Thank you all so much. Okay, if there's nothing else, can we get a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Okay, anyone want a second?
I second. Oh,
Michael, I think Michael got it. Okay, Michael second. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, good. Anyone opposed to adjourning? Nope. All right, so we're adjourning early tonight. Yay. We'll officially adjourn the meeting, the August TAB meeting at 7:54 p.m. And I thank you all for being here.
Thank
Appreciate it. We'll
you.
see you next
you.
month.
Darcy.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.